Tribute to the Zansets Part 2. So, I had said that Francois Mackendal had escaped after a few years, but I forgot to mention that while he was working on the plantation one day, he was involved in an accident which caused him to lose an arm. And after this happened, he was then made to work on the livestock. But as I mentioned, he had extensive knowledge on plants, and he, as I mentioned, I believe he was a Bokor, right, a sorcerer, right, one who encircles himself within spirit, but also Bokor in the sense that he is also one who is known to practice baneful magic. So yeah, after a few years, Makandal escaped, and he escaped into the mountains and into the swamplands of Haiti. And while he was here, he then not only linked up with and joined the Maroon communities, he ended up becoming a leader amongst them. Now, the Maroon communities comprised of the Africans who had escaped and the indigenous folk who had escaped and who, were originally on what was originally called Turtle Island, but Columbus renamed Hispaniola. And the original inhabitants of Haiti were the Ciguayos, right? I know I'm probably mispronouncing it, right? The Ciguayos or Ciguayos. They originally inhabited the Semena Peninsula, and this is like on the Dominican Republic side of the island. And the Tainos migrated from Belize sometime between 6,000 to 4,000 BCE. They migrated from Belize to Haiti. There was also another language which was spoken amongst them. I think there was the Maracois. I'm not mispronouncing it. Maracois natives as well. Haiti translates to mountainous land, right, or land of mountains, or land of elevation. There was another name which the natives called Haiti. I forget the name, right? I forget it at the moment, but it translates to mother of all lands. You see, Haiti, it was a paradise. Turtle Island, it was a paradise for the natives before, Columbus and his cocksucking crew of cocksuckers came and fucking did cocksucking shit. Anyway, let me get back on topic. Yeah, the Africans and the natives who escaped, they would dwell in the mountains and the swamplands. The plantation owners and the colonists, they stayed on the plantation. They knew better than to go off of the fucking plantation or try to go into the mountains or the swamps. If they went off the plantation, they went in groups. But even then, they knew better. Now, it is believed that Makandal being able to rise as a leader amongst the Maroon communities and organizing and coordinating these massive poisonings. Right? His ability to do this, right, was attributed to him, his magical powers. Makandal organized and coordinated massive poisonings, right? A poisoning which ended up poisoning thousands of plantation owners, their family members, their animals, and even slaves, right? Because everyone wasn't with, revolution. Some folk, enjoyed the comforts of the position that they were in. Makandal was a master war strategist, skilled in guerrilla warfare. Now, after this happened, right, the plantation owners and the colonists, they became afraid, right? They not only became afraid that Makandal was going to target all of the plantation owners and colonialists. They really believed in their hearts that he had the means to do this. And so he ended up being captured. And in 1758, in front of the church of what was then known as Cap Francois, but today known as Cap Haïtien or Okap, a shirt was placed on Francois Makandal, right? And this happened out front, the plaza, right, out front of the church. Right? A shirt was placed on him which read seducer, blasphemer, and murderer. And Makandal was made to confess his crimes in front of the crowd, which he did openly. And, then they became afraid and then, sentenced him to be executed by being burned at the stake. So you got to think, they became afraid. It's like, yo, if he can do this, he could eventually organize, right, others, right, elsewhere, right? Because you got to think, Haiti, right, the colony of Saint Domingue was the main source of sugar, right, and coffee, right. Well, particularly sugar, right, mainly, but they produce sugar, they produce coffee, indigo plants, and cocoa, right. But the main commodity was sugar. And so imagine they probably started getting scared, like, man, he could fucking probably poison the sugar supply, right? And so you could see why they're like, oh shit, like immediately they sentenced him to be executed. Like, oh, this guy's fucking dangerous. Get rid of him. Now, according to oral traditions, Makandal also said that he had the ability to transform into a mosquito. And so when Makandal was he was bound, right, and bound to a pyre, and when they went to light him on fire, he struggled, and then he got loose, and he escaped. And so when he escaped, right, the slaves, right, they got right. He was like, oh, Makandal sauvé, which means, Makandal is free. And so the plaza was then cleared out, right, because the plantation owners, they were afraid of, a riot occurring as a result of this, the slaves revolting. And so they cleared them of the plaza, and Makandal was captured, and then he was tied up again. Now, one account that I've read stated that no one saw him executed, right? No one was there to witness it, right? But another account that I read mentioned that he was then executed, like afterwards, right? They tied him to a new pyre and set him ablaze. Now, the oral accounts state that he transformed into a mosquito, right? He wasn't when he was bound again, he transformed into a mosquito, right? When they lit him on fire, he laughed and transformed into a mosquito. Now, some of the factors which aided the Haitians to successfully beat the French and liberate themselves was a multitude of things, right? France was going through the fucking French Revolution. Oh, my fault. Makandal was executed. This happened in 1758. I think it was January 12th of 1758. All right, but now fast forward, right, to the Haitian Revolution. Many factors contributed to the Haitians winning. Not only were they great at organizing and, fighting their asses off. Not only were they good at formulating great war strategies. Not only did they have great leadership, but there were other factors, right, like the French Revolution going on. France and Spain, there was a war that broke out between them, right? I think it was the War of the Pyrenees War. Right, this was from 1793 to 1795. But also, there was massive outbreaks of yellow fever, right? It's like every time the French kept sending more and more troops, more and more reinforcements, they kept getting fucking swamped by yellow fever. And it was discovered later, right, that, and this is interesting, right, that there's a type of mosquito that is the carrier of yellow fever. Right? It carries yellow fever, right? Like being bitten by them, you end up getting yellow fever. And so, that shit is pretty interesting, right? According to the oral traditions, Makadal transformed into a mosquito. It's interesting, right? His spirit still aided and assisted ultimately. Because remember, he formulated an intimate relationship, right, with plants. But not only that, he also developed an intimate relationship with animals, right? When he experienced losing an arm, and he was then made to herd livestock. Right? You working with plants, man. You in nature. You dealing with animals, right? You're gonna connect with nature, right? That's what happens. And so I just thought that shit was interesting. But I'm gonna do other parts on other Zansets. This is the end of the tribute to Francois Makandal. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Y'all be easy. And stay tuned for more.